thing shuts off and it dumps the laundry, you know, into your basket or whatever at the end. It's kind of cool. And they had some clear sections in the pipe, so you could actually see the stuff go through. And, you know, I think if I had it in my house, I would want to show that off. And not that I want people necessarily looking at my dirty underwear.
Hey everyone, we're at the Fine Home Building Podcast, live recording at the International Builders Show 2019 in Las Vegas, and this is our last of 6 episodes from the show floor. And we're here with me, Rob Watzak, and Matt Milham from Fine Home Building, and we have Matt Minshew from Huber. And what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we were thinking we would talk a little bit about roof assemblies and some of the trends we see happening out in the marketplace and what builders are looking for these days as it relates to their roofs.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, is that how this goes?
So actually, you know, I mean, is this coming from a particular perspective of what you're looking for, you're trying to identify when you come to a show like this, what builders want in the market?
It is, for sure. So when we innovate, you know, companies have different ways of going about this. Some companies start with the technology and then they look for a fit in the marketplace for it. For us, we start with the customer and we try to really understand what the need is. And you know, with Zip System, I'm sure people have seen it all over the place in wall applications. The sheathing has always been acceptable for roof sheathing as well. But our focus really has been in wall assemblies traditionally with Zip System, and some of that also is just that that's where the market was 13 years ago when the product launched. The building community was looking for systems that were easier to install, that could help work towards changes in energy code. And so organizationally, we focused on the wall assembly, and as that part of the business has grown, we're really looking at the roof assembly now and asking ourselves how we accelerate growth in that space. So when we come to a show like IBS, for sure, you know, we're having conversations with builders, asking you know what challenges that they're facing, also where they see the puck going, you know, so we can try to skate to it.
Sure. So now, I mean, if you look at a house, you look at the sheathing on the roof and you look at the sheathing on the walls, I mean, to the average person, it doesn't look like there's really much difference going on there.
Right.
But what unique challenges that make roofing such a focus right now are there?
Right. So, you know, certainly in disaster-prone areas of the country, whether it's hurricane zones along the coast, areas that have severe thunderstorms or hailstorms, the needs there kind of center around preparing for extreme weather events. And that drives a lot of the decision-making around the roof assembly. But in other areas of the country, you know, it might be the design of the home and how long the roof is sitting exposed before the roofer shows up. It could be the overall strength of the system. You know, if the builder's using spray foam, it could be how weather tight the deck is to try to prevent leaks. But you know, what I've seen going around the country is that builders really are still looking for that kind of leak-free system that they can trust for long-term performance.
So is there something in particular you're seeing in your approach or your planned approach to roof sheathing that's different from what we're all familiar with?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You know, the idea of Zip in a roof application, you know, the value really kind of depends on the design of the roof and what that builder gets out of using a Zip System. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all in terms of the value the builder gets. Some builders are all about speed, and they appreciate the speed of the rough dry-in that Zip provides. Builders who are building along the Gulf Coast want a sealed roof deck, and we're able to deliver that with the combination of our integrated weather-resistant barrier and also the tape that's used to seal the seams and any transitions or penetrations in the roof.
Sure. Now the environments and the challenges that you're talking about here, I mean, obviously your coating systems and your tape joint sealing systems are really only one part of that equation. How much of what you do has to be about what you communicating with fastener manufacturers and any other manufacturers or organizations that work in that?
That's a great point. You know, understanding that we're part of a system and we play kind of one part in that total assembly of how the roof assembly performs, but also the total building envelope. So certainly, we're having conversations with fastening companies and underlayment companies, roof covering companies, to understand how all these products perform together.
Yeah, because that's one thing, I started out at Green Building Advisor before I came to Fine Home Building, and so obviously the sorts of challenges that you have in not just in producing a product, but getting the information that people in the field need to use it or to use it properly, is that I'm hopeful that more and more people are understanding the fact that when you think of a wall or a roof, it's an assembly of integrated parts. It's not like you can treat each one of them as an individual, independent thing.
I agree with that. My background before joining Huber was actually in fastening, and so it was interesting, kind of starting from that point of view in the total assembly, and then now working for a sheathing company and seeing how all this connects together. But certainly, I think that's a necessity for manufacturers to to drive that education, to inform everybody who has a stake in this discussion, whether it's the builder, the homeowner, the code community, anybody involved.
Sure, and I think that's one of our biggest goals, at Fine Home Building, is just getting that information out. Because one of the common themes I've taken away from this show this year is that there are lots of great ideas and great materials out there, and a lot of them, it's just a matter of the people not being aware of them. That it's not that people have any bad impressions of them. It's they just literally do not know that all the options available to them.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's that's something we are always looking at. Is first, how do we create that initial awareness? And it could be awareness of our product line, or even just awareness of certain challenges that are out there. It's frequently what I find is we're often talking to builders who have been in this industry for decades, 30 years, 40 years, and they've developed systems. They've developed trust in products, and so often what I hear is that they may be cognizant of a challenge that they're facing, but there's a hesitation to necessarily try something new. Basically just not wanting to be the guinea pig and saying, look, I don't know what uncertainty I'm introducing by trying something new. And I think that's part of the responsibility of a manufacturer, is to, like I said, create that initial awareness, but then also provide the education and ultimately build confidence at the builder level that the change is worth the investment.
Sure.
In the area of the country that we live in, we see a lot of zip, and especially, you see the red zip on roofs all the time. And when you say that this is sort of a new thing, it seems like around us anyway, it doesn't seem like it's that new. So what is this new focus? Is there something else going on that I guess we might be missing?
Sure, that's a great point. So, there's a variety of reasons for that. One of our first mills was in northern Maine, and so that fed into the kind of the focus and the success in New England. And then as our business has grown, and we have mills in Oklahoma, Virginia, Tennessee, Maine, and Georgia, and so as our footprint has grown, the product has kind of become more readily available across the country. We've also expanded our sales force over the last 13 plus years, and so we're getting that word out. We're making the product available, but like I said, in other areas of the country, basically combination of product availability, but then also having the sales team out to drive education, awareness, create an opportunity for builders to try it. That's really been kind of some factors that we've looked at to address to drive growth.
Do you find yourselves having to try to sell people on this if they've already been using zip wall, or no?
If they're familiar with zip wall, then they've experienced the technology. They've also experienced the process of installing it. It's a different installation process than they might be used to, if they're using a traditional house wrap as an example. So yeah, they see the product for the first time, and there might be some skepticism. If in a roof application, they might ask, really, I don't need to put an additional underlayment down. I can eliminate felt and shingle directly to it, so that it's the idea is different than what they've grown up doing, and so like I said, that's on us to build the awareness and then provide the education that yes, this is a code approved, accepted way to build now.
Yeah, and you still need to put ice and water, ice protection, whatever the code calls it. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anywhere where there are concerns about ice dams, that type of underlayment, if code requires, we would also require over zip.
Cool. And one question that's come up in the past, and one of your technical reps actually answered this for me a few months ago. When you re-roof over zip, like if you take off shingles and you're putting on new, what do you have to do then?
You would use an underlayment.
Yeah.
So the first time around, if shingles are being applied, they can be applied directly to our panel. But on the second roof, so after a re-roof, our concern would be that there's some damage to the integrated WRB.
Just a couple thousand holes.
A couple thousand holes to think about.
You mean can't go around with like a little caulk gun and fill all those little holes?
Let me defer to our R&D team on that one, but my hunch would be no.
All right. Well, so Matt, have you had a chance to walk the floor at all while you've been here, or you've been pretty much tied to the booth?
Well, so thanks to modern technology, I can tell you exactly how many steps I've taken walking around here. So, I've walked around quite a bit.
Yeah, anything unrelated to your own industry that really jumped out at you that you saw that you were excited about or curious about?
A couple. So maybe outside of my space personally, but I've been coming to this show since 2003, and I don't know. I just continue to be impressed by the role of technology in our industry. Also, I feel like there have been some big cultural changes. So, as an example, seeing how Instagram has proliferated in our industry. Maybe 10 years ago, I don't know that I would have imagined that that Instagram would have the power that it does in connecting builders to each other and just information sharing, building that part of the community. I guess, if I look back 10 years ago, I would be surprised that it is what it is today. And then just, continuous innovation. It's a changing space.
Definitely.
Is there anything here in your, I guess maybe not necessarily like in the sheathing world, but in the roofing world that you see here that you're like, we need to get that approved to be put on zip? Because a lot of these products need to be approved specifically for use with zip. Is that how that works?
So approval-wise, not really in terms of like an approval process. But I was at the International Roofing Expo the other week, and then here at IBS this week, and we're seeing more and more solar options being so PV options being made available from major roof covering manufacturers. So that catches my attention, and I kind of wonder how rapidly that's going to continue to gain steam on residential roofs.
And these are like solar tiles or
solar
shingles?
Solar shingles, also just PV panels. So I've seen a few major shingle manufacturers who are now offering PV panels as part of the overall roof system that they offer. So it's interesting to see that gaining steam, and that's piqued my interest.
Cool.
Well, I think thanks for being here, Matt, and I think we're going to take a quick break, and Matt and I will come back and do a little recap of the show.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
All right. As I said earlier, we're at our last episode of the show. We're hanging on here with our cups of coffee and hoping our flights aren't all getting canceled tonight.
Yeah, they got about a half inch of snow in Las Vegas, so that means the whole city grinds to a halt. So
it was crazy. I mean, we were at the Keep Craft Alive event last night, and every single person that worked in the place from Las Vegas was like running out and taking pictures of the snow and.
And this morning I woke up and opened up the curtains, and there was snow falling. I was up on the 27th floor, and there was huge snowflakes. And I went down to the first floor, and it was just rain down there.
Yeah, and I think we heard that like the last time, other than this week, that it snowed here was something like 2008.
Yeah, something like that. But it snowed like Sunday and then today, so twice in 1 week after years of no snow.
But anyway, so we figured Matt and I figured we'd just do a little wrap up and. Some of our highlights from the show, and I don't know, why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, just going to talk a little bit about some of the things we saw. Both of us went around with Mike Girton for a little bit. He had kind of picked out his favorites, and Mike likes to kind of look at some of the smaller manufacturers, people who maybe don't have much of a marketing budget, but also are making like really cool things. Because for some reason, it seems like these huge companies that have huge R&D budgets are not innovating in the way that some of these tinkerers in their garages are. Yep. And you, as a guy who just made a bike plow,
yeah,
and have gained some amount of fame over that, can probably appreciate this. We talked to one guy. He started a company called Tool Tribe. It's basically kind of like Airbnb, but for tools. So if you've got a tool just sitting around in your truck or your garage and you're not using it, you can put it up on this app, and people can rent it from you. So you can basically make money off of the tools that you've got sitting around. And if you need a tool and somebody else has it, you can also go onto the app and rent it from there, and you can either pick it up or have it delivered to you. And that was kind of a really cool find for Mike.
How long have they been around, do you know?
I think the guy said he started about 9 months ago, and the app, I think, is really only live, I think, right now in the San Diego area. Okay. But he's trying to find, basically people to sort of help out, in getting it started in other parts of the country too. And I've got a lot of stuff sticking around in my garage that I'd love to be making some money on, rather than just have it sit there while I'm at work all day.
Yeah, you could. I got tools that I've sold on Craigslist. If I knew that there was a rental market for them, maybe I would have hung on to them.
Yeah, you can probably make more money off it that way than you're going to make from a one-time sale. So.
Yeah. So did they say anything about, like, obviously you're using dangerous power tools that belong to somebody else. There's got to be some serious liability issues there.
Yeah, and they do have, there's a couple things. There's insurance, so it'll protect you if your tool gets damaged. Really, they have it set up that if somebody who borrows your tool or rents your tool breaks it, I think they're supposed to pay. But they can also get insurance so that, essentially they don't have any additional risk there. But also, there's some sort of like a liability waiver that you sign or that the person has to sign, so that they can't hold you responsible if they do something dumb with your tool and hurt themselves. Yeah.
So on the theme of apps, I stumbled across this one company today called Guild Quality. And at the KCA event, the Keep Crafted Live event last night, one of the common themes was that, there are a lot of things that you just don't have the time to do as a small business owner, and that communication is a big part of marketing. And luckily a lot of the guys that we work with are really internet and social media savvy and enjoy being on Instagram and sharing a lot of their information with them. But as far as building a reputation with your customers, your clients, or potential clients, this company basically offers a service where they will do surveys after projects are completed, and they actually hire a lot of part-time people to do calling. It's like a multi-step system. Like, they'll do email first to try to get a survey filled out by a customer, and then they also have a call center, or actually not a call center. They have callers who are typically people kind of the same way that Uber hires people who have some free time that want to work a couple hours here and there. They hire people, stay-at-home moms or retired people or whatever. And they even said they just started a program where they specifically are hiring retired veterans. And what they do is then it's not just about the surveys. They have this really beautiful module that you can integrate into your website that actually on a regular basis will feed in reviews of your work that they've collected from your actual customers. And so it's like a proactive thing at that point too, because it's not just getting the information about what was, what went well, what didn't well, what you're doing right with your business, but it's actually something you can use as a marketing tool as well.
Is that a little like TaskRabbit? You know what that is?
TaskRabbit is kind of like a
hire service where you basically hire somebody to, like a part-time guy to come over and assemble your IKEA cabinets.
So when I said they hire people or part-time, that's their workforce. This is part of their system. Okay. So they are a service provider. So you hire them, you get a subscription or something with them, and then they provide the service
it's like a temp
to get
agency kind of.
They provide the service to you as a contractor to get reviews, surveys from your clients that then get put on your website. So you're not having to go through that process of checking in with your past clients and then taking pull quotes from the reviews. It's like they've got people who will actually collect the information and then provide it back to you in a way that you can use it for your marketing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense then.
So, yeah. Sorry, I guess I didn't quite explain it
well,
properly.
no, I think I zoned out for a little bit while you were talking about it.
and I guess it was the fact that they use these part-time people as part of their workforce that kind of threw you for a loop.
I think so. Another one that Mike pointed out to me was a laundry jet, which is sort of like the pneumatic tubes that they have at the bank, where you like put your money in a canister and you put it in this thing, and it goes thunk, and it just like sucks it over, and somebody else takes it out of the other side of the tube.
So there's no canister though.
There's no canister. You wave your hand in front of this thing, the chute opens, and you just start sticking your laundry in there, and it sucks it through like a 6-inch PVC pipe. And then it goes into
small enough that you're not going to like lose a small child in it.
No, that was one of the things I was thinking about. Like, I can't imagine how many gerbils and guinea pigs are going to get stuck in these things over the years. But all the laundry goes into a collector, and then once it's full, the thing shuts off and it dumps the laundry, into your basket or whatever at the end. It's kind of cool. And they had some clear sections in the pipe, so you could actually see the stuff go through. And I think if I had it in my house, I would want to show that off. And not that I want people necessarily looking at my dirty underwear, but
I think if it were in my house, I'd probably want to put the clear section like across the living room ceiling or through the foyer, so that the guests get to watch the laundry zoom by.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw that little video clip that you guys did. It kind of reminded me of the scene in Willy Wonka when the kid falls in the chocolate river.
Exactly. Yeah, all these things I'm going to be talking about are up on our Instagram if you want to actually see some of them in action, because a lot of this stuff is pretty cool.
Cool. So now, one thing I saw that, and I always thought this was something that, you lose your cell phone in the house, you leave it somewhere, and you can call it or with GPS track it, or at least make it beep so that you know where it is, right? Mm-hmm. And but your keys, you can get those little tiles to stick on your key with an app. It costs like $20 or whatever. But these guys from Poland, actually, let me see what the name of their company was. I got it in my stuff here. Well, I'll put it. Oh, here we go. It's called Locky, L-O-C-K-Y. And what it is when you get your car key from the modern car keys have like this little flippy thing, and it's like it's like the fob for your locks is in the key itself. Well, what these guys have is you stick your key into this thing, and it looks just like one of those things. But then it's got some sort of, I think it's Bluetooth. It hooks up to an app on your phone. And so there's nothing that you do to your actual lock. It's all about the key. So, just 90% they said of standard house keys will fit inside this thing, and then you just put it on your keychain or in your pocket. And the thing is, when you stick it in the door and lock the door, it must have some sort of accelerometers in it or something that senses when the key is being turned in a lock, or maybe it's a electrical contact in the key. I didn't actually get how the system worked, but it recognizes when you have locked or unlocked your door, and it will send the information to the app so that you have one of these, your daughter has one, your wife has one, or whoever has one of these things to your house, it will log when the door was last locked or unlocked. But the coolest thing I thought about it was that it actually has some sort of GPS tracker in it, so that if you lose your keys, you press a button on the app and it starts playing a little music, and you can hear it in your house. And it actually has, it tells you approximately how far away from it you are. So you can actually track it down in your house if you've lost your keys. It may seem like a novelty device to some people, but I can't tell you how many times I've wished something like that existed. So it's kind of exciting to see someone actually created that.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Another one that we saw was this maglev. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a maglev door. Basically, they use these rare earth magnets, and it levitates this door above sort of the rail. And so it just is like super quiet, and you don't have to worry. They've got one that's for barn doors. And one of the coolest things about that is that you don't have to worry about all kinds of like schmutz and everything gathering up in there and, making it impossible to open that door over time. It's just never going to be an issue. And it just was like, it's a little bit of like a futuristic thing, because when we were kids, I think they were talking about like maglev trains, don't really exist. I mean, they do, but not in the scale that they were probably promising. But
So I would imagine one of the reasons why maglev trains don't exist is because you need a seriously big magnet in order to do something like that. I mean, how much weight? I mean, obviously these magnets lift a lot of weight.
yeah,
Did
they
you
do.
ask them about that?
Yeah, I think the one he said does about 10 pounds per square inch of magnet. So you can get up to, he said he thought somewhere around 500 to 600 pounds.
Wow.
For the big barn doors, you know. And he said if you needed more weight, they would just put in stronger magnets.
So did you talk to them at all about like what was their motivation to make something that sounds sort of futuristic for, you know, something that we pretty much have solutions for already?
Yeah, I think they were just looking for something that was a little bit different than what's already out there. I didn't really get the sense that it was anything other than like a really cool idea, but there may have been something else to it that I just missed.
Well, I imagine, I guess there's zero frictions or low friction, so that's
Yeah.
for a heavy door, that's probably a plus.
Yeah, and they had one that was like a shower door, and you know, it's just a nice thing, you know, like to get in and I guess not have any. I mean, it moves really easily. And
Quiet too, I'm sure.
It's really quiet. It moves really easily. They have this huge glass panel that just slides back and forth, and yeah, there's absolutely nothing for it to bind up on.
Where was that? I want to go check that.
It's up in the South Hall, up on that second floor or whatever up there.
You know, one thing I noticed up in that South Hall is that there's a huge Asian presence of all these Asian manufacturers up there, like these huge pods from China and Korea and stuff. And I mean, you know, it's a lot of it's just sort of like products that are just average home, you know, building products that you see already from all our well-known manufacturers here. But there were some pretty interesting, innovative, you know, unusual materials that you don't see. In fact, there was this one weird thing that I saw. It was okay, you know how the old baby buggies, like from, you know, the 19th century, had those little retractable roofs, almost like a convertible top?
Okay.
It was a carport that was built out of extruded aluminum with
that.
like glass panels in it that
Yeah.
looked like a double-ended like baby buggy canopy. And so you'd pull your car in there, and this like telescoping like arched doorway would then just enclose your car.
Right, like one of those pill bugs or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that if you lived in like a nice, like classic traditional neighborhood, that somebody would probably park one of those things in their driveway. But it certainly was interesting.
Yeah, no, I took a look at that too. One thing that was kind of just like a really smart idea, not high tech at all. It just looked like a piece of EMT with like two little teeth kind of like back on it. And it is a plate protector for electrical cables and other cables that you run through the wall. You just normally, you know, you drill a hole through a stud to,
Sure.
you know, to run your cables through. And you normally have to put plate protectors on either side of the stud so that when you put your drywall screws in, you don't, you know, damage the cables. This thing goes actually through the hole, and you can put it in either before or after you run your cables because it's got a little slot through the top. And
that makes a lot of sense, because you figure you put a plate. First of all, a lot of people are irritated with those plate things, especially if you're putting drywall over it.
That's
You're
the
hitting
thing.
them with the screw.
Yep.
And if you don't have a monster one, somebody could still come in from an angle and hit the wire with a long screw or something like that. But that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it was Mike, you know, he like made me, he wouldn't let me go up to the table at first because he was like, hold on. He was like, stand right here. And he like ran over to the table, grabbed it, came back with it. He was like, what's this? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I kind of figured it out. I was like, I was getting close to the ballpark before he told me what it was. But super smart idea. Yeah, I can't imagine that people won't want to go to this because, like you said, it's, you know, you don't have to, with the plates, I mean, sometimes you can end up with some little humps and stuff like that. There's a lot of reasons not to like them. But these things also, it's a single thing. So, like, you're saving some labor because you don't have to put those plates on both sides of the wall, on interior walls. You just have one little device that you stick through.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned something there about, you know, Mike showing you that little device and you having to guess what it is. That, you know, being editors, I'm sure you think like this too. You see a billboard somewhere and you're like, those people need an editor. Because like one thing, to all you marketing people out there who are designing these booths, there's lots of beautiful booths here. There's lots of great displays. But one thing I've noticed a lot is that people don't realize that you can't just put your product name on a wall. You know, it's like, especially if it's something unusual, it's like you've got to put a quick sentence, a quick phrase that explains exactly why somebody wants to walk into your booth, because some of these products just don't speak for themselves. And this is a busy, huge place. It's like you got to catch people's attention right off the bat. And
Yeah.
so
That's the thing. I'm sure some of this stuff I had walked past previously and not really paid it any attention, because there's a lot of people here, and if you pause for even 1 second or make eye contact, they will grab you and you will not leave for 20 minutes because they will chew your ear off, and no matter what attempts you make to leave, they won't let you go.
Yeah.
So I probably ran past some of these things and didn't even notice them. But yeah, if it was obvious what some of these things were right off the bat, and you could be like, oh, that solves a problem I didn't know I had, but it actually is a problem.
Yeah, for sure. I made a couple of Instagram posts about some of the trucks. I'd like to go back and maybe hit some more before I leave. But I mean, one thing I noticed is that all the most of the major truck brands that we know and as contractors are here. You see Chevy, Ford, Ram trucks. There's some nice Sprinter vans. Nissan had some nice trucks here, but what really caught my eye was more that a lot of these trucks typically rely on third-party suppliers for what make the trucks truly cool as a contractor vehicle. It's like you think a lot of contractors are always like, is van better? But then you got to crawl over everything to get to all your drawers inside, or is one of those utility bodies with all the boxes on the outside better? But they always seem like you pack those things full of tools and they're just rattling around in there. And
you still have to be organized yourself in order to make full use of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so at the Ford booth, pretty much all of the trucks there were modified by some other company, and there were some really neat beds. Like one I saw had a pass-through under the bed that allowed you to have these drawers that were as long as the bed was wide, it seemed. And so then it looked like a giant tool drawer you'd see in like a mechanic's toolbox with a rubber mat in the bottom, so you could just put all your hand tools in there. They're not going to be banging around as much. And then they had lots of modular bins and trays and all kinds of cool stuff to keep those things organized, which, it's like I haven't worked out of a truck like that in a long time, and all I know those things as is a place where you just shove stuff in and try to slam the door shut before it falls out,
Yeah. Probably the last thing I'll talk about, this company, Intertech. This guy also is like a tinkerer, inventor, I think. And I can't remember what he was in. I think it was masonry. But he invented a couple different things. One are these reinforcement plates for joists. So like if you have to, cut a notch or a hole in a joist to run like a duct, or to, put some kind of plumbing in, or, there's any number of reasons that you might have to do that. And if you... you have to reinforce the joist a lot of times if you've cut a hole that's bigger than you're allowed to cut by code.
Or if you're remodeling a house, you pull down some sheetrock and you realize that the last plumber or electrician in there cut like 6 inches through an 8-inch joist.
Right. Yeah. So he's got these. The one thing he has are these joist reinforcement plates that work for both. He's got ones for solid sound joists, or any kind of dimensional joist, and also for eye joists. And it just seemed like super cool. They weren't that long. Like they didn't extend that far on either side of the hole. They just attach with a ton of screws. It's basically 14 gauge steel that comes up. It's almost like a part of a very thick like steel framing member that gets attached to the side of the joist.
So does it wrap around the edge of the joist?
No, it just goes on one side and screws through it. As far as I understand, the kit comes with all the screws. There's probably like 20 or so screws, maybe more than that go in the side of this thing. And the other thing this guy had was this deck bracket that works with like brick or veneer stone. I should say veneer brick. So nobody builds bearing brick anymore. But so this is a solution. Building a deck on that kind of
Mike
house,
showed me that thing.
Yeah, it can be kind of difficult. And this is a thing that just attaches basically to the rim of your house. I think you have to put in some kind of extra blocking in order to get the full rating, for the screws to have something to bite into. But it allows you to, put a deck ledger onto that then, and so it's outboard of the brick. And
because otherwise you really aren't even allowed to put a deck ledger on a brick wall, a veneer wall, right?
Right. Yeah. There would be all kinds of problems, and I mean, obviously, this is a really great solution if you're building the house and, you know, putting the deck on initially. But I mean, you could still cut into it and add this on after if you wanted to.
So the last thing I'm going to mention here is, you know, we're obviously Keep Craft Alive is the hashtag that people are seeing floating around, and that's our. It's, you know, I think a lot of people only know it as an initiative to get more awareness about craftsmanship, but that a lot of people don't realize that it's also about raising money for scholarships for people going into the trades. But on the craft theme here, one of my favorite things, and you know, I'm a metal worker and I love traditional crafts. I found this company, Bevelo, I believe it's called. They are. They're in the French Quarter in New Orleans.
I was going to say, yeah, Patrick and I saw those guys last year, and they're out there with their like old-timey hats and stuff, like kind of like fabricating lights and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
so what caught my attention is they have a bunch of actual gas lamps, you know, like street lamps or house side lamps, burning on this column right there, and I was like, the last time I saw an actual gas lamp was an antique in some, you know, 18th century neighborhood in like old Alexandria or something like that, and I never would have imagined that somebody is still making those by hand somewhere and using gas lamps. Obviously, they're in the French Quarter in New Orleans, in a very historic place where that would have been a traditional lamp. But they ship these things all over the world, and it's a fourth-generation company in a 200-year-old building in New Orleans, and they have, I think they said, about 50 craftsmen in there. About 15 or so of them are actually doing the final assembly, and then they've got some other guys doing like the fabrication of parts, and they were just these gorgeous copper lamps that they were making there, just the same way that they've been making them for 75 years, I believe.
Yeah, they are beautiful.
So, but you know, it's just like it's just really exciting to see that there are just still companies like that out there, people like that out there doing that wonderful handcraft work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I'd love to see more, but we've had a long couple of days here, and I think we're all ready to try to find our flights home. Hopefully, they won't be canceled from the bad weather we've been having. And but I think it's been a great show.
Yeah, it's been a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So you know, next week we'll be back to our normal podcast schedule of one a week every Friday morning, and. As always, we love your feedback. What is it? FH Podcast at Taunton.com?
FHB Podcast, maybe?
FHB Podcast. We have so many addresses, sometimes I get it mixed up. But FHB Podcast at Taunton.com, or, go on Facebook or Instagram and, message us, connect with us through there. But that's about it. We're getting ready to pack up here, and we'll see you guys again next year.
Happy building.